So Mossab Hassan Youssef, the son of a Hamas co-founder and leader who broke away and now supports Israel, quoted a poll recently on his Twitter done by the Palestinian Center for Policy and Survey, which finds that still, even as the war is progressing and Hamas are being destroyed, most Palestinians support Hamas. Now, we knew this at the start of the war. We knew this even in March. And a recent poll done between May the 26th and June the 1st found this. The majority found the October 7th genocide was a correct decision. It found that Hamas would win the next parliamentary elections, that Hamas should return to rule after the war. They support that. That Hamas didn't commit war crimes on October 7th. That Marwan Barghouti will be the next Palestinian president. And he asked, what is the difference between Palestinians and Hamas? And that's an important question, because the first thing we have to appreciate is that this notion of, well, it's Hamas and then there's civilians, actually the line is far more blurry than that. Far more blurry. If you are a mother raising terrorists, if you're a teacher teaching people to be terrorists, if you're hiding stockpiles and weapons for Hamas, if you're holding a hostage, if you're just an innocent photojournalist who is holding hostages, imprisoning them, abusing them, which occurred, which happened. And we found out just last week when Israel did their raid. So first of all, we have to appreciate that the line is far more blurry. And secondly, yes, the majority still support the Hamas agenda. Now, this is not to say that there are not innocents. This is not to say that children are not innocent when they're brainwashed and their society brainwashes them. It's also not to say that it may well be the case that some of these people say these things under pressure because they're in an authoritarian state. But at the end of the day, this is the situation that we are dealing with. This is what Israel is confronting. This is the society, a group of people that Israel is facing. And this notion of, all these civilians, it's just, it's little Hamas and then loads and loads of innocent civilians. It's far more blurry than that. There's a huge amount of complicity. So what does this mean for us, for the Jewish people, for Israel, for the world? Clearly, it is not going to be enough to simply destroy Hamas. We need to start thinking about what's the plan afterwards. We need to ask ourselves and think about, how are we actually going to deal with the root issue, the hatred? Well, the answer lies, in my view, in the view of my teachers and rabbis and reading and talking about this day in, day out, is that obviously what's going to need to happen is there's going to need to be an ideological shift to create peace. And to do that, you need to understand what is the ideology that's leading the Arabs in Gaza and in Judea and Samaria, the West Bank, and those who support Hamas and the Palestinian cause throughout the Arab world. What is the ideology that's drawing them there? Well, it's actually pretty simple. It's not really about land and national self-determination. They don't care about those things. The truth is that if the surrounding Arab armies had won in 1948 or 1967, and Israel was carved up by Jordan and Syria, Lebanon, Egypt, they wouldn't care. They didn't care when they were occupied by them, by Egypt and Jordan, after 48. Because it's not about a Palestinian identity or self-determination. They consider themselves Arabs. They're happy to be part of the Arab world. They just can't have Israel there. Why? Because the fundamental nature of the Islamist worldview is that the Muslims become the new chosen people. God breaks his covenant with the Jewish people. They are forced to wander the earth. They have second-class status, certainly in the Muslim world. And they are rejected. And the proof for that was the Jews were exiled from their land. And Islam was growing. It's a similar piece of evidence that Christians use, by the way, to justify their supersessionist theology and that they have the new covenant with God. So then, of course, what do when you see that the Jewish people, these lowly Jews, suddenly return to their land? Suddenly they make the land bloom again, having faced 2,000 years of desolation. That they return there en masse and rebuild. And the land begins to flourish again. How do you make sense of that? We thought God forsook the Jewish people. We thought he broke his covenant with them. They're winning again? What does this mean? So you've got two options. Option one is God never forsook the Jewish people. He never broke his covenant with them. And by the way, a covenant that God can break isn't worth the paper that it's written on. Covenants are eternal. And therefore, God never forsook the Jewish people, and he's keeping his promise. He said he'd exile them, he's returning them. They are God's chosen people, chosen to be his voice to the world. And part of that chosenness means they inherit the land of Israel. Well, what does that mean for your Islamist supersessionist theology? It's a big threat, isn't it? So what do? Well, either you accept this premise, or option two is, no, this is a test from God. It must be an evil that needs to be eliminated. And that's what they think. They think this is a test from God. We have to eliminate this evil because we are the new covenantal people of God. So what do the Jewish people say when they think that? What does Israel say? What does Israel's leaders say? We say, we're the only democracy in the Middle East. We say we have a right to defend ourselves. We even try, we're indigenous to this land. And they say, you see, they don't really belong here. What are they drawing on to justify this? No, we aren't God's chosen people now. We inherit the land. We have the right to it. Good for you, you're a democracy. It's not relevant. And frankly, it doesn't carry much weight. They say, the UN supported our right to exist and we were founded on international law. It's like you're talking completely different, in different directions. So part of the solution to this ideological problem has to also come from the Jewish people. The Jewish people are going to have to articulate to a deeply religious and ideological world about their spiritual destiny, their spiritual relationship with the land. We haven't been saying it. We haven't tried it as an approach. We're too busy talking to the Western world, trying to impress them, but that's not the source of this conflict. The source of this conflict is not the Western world, it's the Middle East. And really, it's the only kind of language that they'll understand. And we've seen, through people like Mossab, through people like Loe al-Sharif, who I interviewed a few months ago, and others, that when you say this to them, or even when they do their own research, they get it. They get it. The truth has power. And really, this is the only way forward. This is the only way to resolve what is fundamentally a religious conflict. That's what it comes down to. It's not a nationalist conflict. It's not a political, geographical conflict. It's about religion. And really, it's going to push the Jewish people to fully come into their role. Finally, now that the exile's ended, now that we really are able to reclaim our voice, we can now stand up and speak. It's just we've been so used to being intimidated, abused, and silenced that we're struggling to find our voice. But it's going to happen, and it's going to be the source of the solution. Hi, thank you so much for watching. To watch another one, click here. To stay up to date with all our content, click here to subscribe. And if you're able to, you can help support JTV to grow and grow by clicking join below this video, where you can become a member and get perks including early access to videos and private live discussions with me. But most of all, you'll be partnering with us on our mission to change the world.